Picture this. You are standing in Cairo, Egypt. The year is 1324. The city is alive with merchants, scholars, and travelers from every corner of the known world. The markets are crowded. The streets are busy. Business is booming. And then, rumors begin to spread. A king is coming. Not just any king. A king so wealthy, people struggle to comprehend the size of his fortune. Gold, camels, servants, an endless caravan stretching beyond the horizon. Little do they know, history is about to witness one of the greatest displays of wealth the world has ever seen. And trust me, we are only scratching the surface here. To understand this story, we need to travel west, much further west, to an empire many people today have never heard of, the Mali Empire. At its peak, Mali controlled vast territories across West Africa. It was rich in something the medieval world desperately wanted: gold, and not a little gold, a lot of gold. Some historians estimate that nearly half of the world's known gold passed through West Africa during this period. Let that sink in for a moment. While many people imagine medieval Africa as isolated or underdeveloped, the reality was very different. Trade routes crossed deserts, cities flourished, knowledge spread, and at the center of this powerful empire stood a ruler named Mansa Musa. Now, here's where things get interesting. In 1324, Mansa Musa embarked on a pilgrimage to Mecca, a journey known as the Hajj. For many rulers, this would have been a religious expedition. For Mansa Musa, it became something much bigger. Picture this: thousands of attendants, hundreds of camels, each carrying gold, and not small amounts, massive quantities. The caravan moved across Sahara Desert like a moving city. Villagers watched in amazement. Travelers shared stories. News spread ahead of the procession because nobody had ever seen anything quite like it. And just like that, the legend began. You were asking, how rich was Mansa Musa? Well, that's the fascinating part. Many economists believe his wealth was so enormous it cannot be accurately converted into today's money. Think about that. Not difficult, not complicated, impossible. Because his fortune was tied to resources, land, trade, and gold on scale almost impossible to measure. But here's the thing. The most famous part of the story isn't how much gold he had. It's what he did with it. As Mansa Musa traveled through cities like Cairo, he gave away vast amounts of gold to the poor, to officials, to religious institutions, to merchants. Everywhere he went, gold flowed like a river. Sounds generous, right? Well, there was a problem. Too much gold entered local markets, and boom, something extraordinary happened. Gold became so abundant, its value reportedly dropped. Prices shifted. Economies felt the impact. Imagine being so wealthy that your spending influences entire regions. That's the level we are talking about. But reducing Mansa Musa to gold alone would miss the bigger story, because wealth wasn't his only legacy, knowledge was. During his travels, he encountered scholars, architects, and intellectuals from across Islamic world. And when he returned to Mali, he invested heavily in education. Libraries were built, schools expanded, mosques were constructed, Cities such as Timbuktu became centers of learning. Students traveled from distant lands to study there. Look closely. This wasn't simply an empire of wealth. It was becoming an empire of ideas. And history often remembers ideas far longer than riches. Fast forward for a moment. Picture Timbuktu centuries ago. Books being copied by hand. Scholars debating philosophy. Mathematics being taught. Astronomy being studied. Knowledge flowing through classrooms and libraries. Does that sound like the image many people have of medieval Africa? Well, probably not. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because history is often more complicated and far more fascinating than stereotypes. The Mali Empire wasn't sitting on the sidelines of world history. It was helping shape it. Now, let's keep it real. Can we truly say Mansa Musa was the richest man in history? The answer isn't simple. Comparing medieval wealth to modern wealth is incredibly difficult. Different economies, different currencies, different worlds. But many historians agree on one thing. Few individuals have ever possessed such extraordinary access to resources and influence. Whether he was the richest person ever or merely one of the richest, his story remains remarkable, and you gotta agree on this one. Because wealth alone doesn't create legends, impact does. Somewhere beneath the sands of history, the story of Mansa Musa still echoes. A ruler whose journey crossed continents, a king whose wealth became legend, a leader who invested not only in gold but in knowledge. And perhaps that's the most important lesson of all, because fortunes come and go. Gold rises and falls just like tides, but ideas endure, and centuries later, people still remember the king from Mali, not simply because he was wealthy, but because he left a mark on history impossible to ignore.